what's up you guys? I am so excited to be revealing to you today my arched bookcase built-in. This has been a long time coming. I have shown some sneaks and peeks, but finally it is all done and I get to reveal the whole process with you. I am going to be breaking down this build into 3 separate videos. The first video is going to be talking about the build of the base cabinet as well as the shaker style doors. And then following that, the second video will show the whole top portion of the shelving and the arch. And then finally, the last video is going to wrap everything up with the install and finishing touches. So make sure to click that notification bell so that you can stay tuned for all of those videos. But right now, let's jump in and get started with part 1. I always like to start with the plan, so let's jump right in. I based my plans off of a base cabinet that is 48 inches long and 36 inches high. This would include 3 vertical pieces, 2 bottom pieces, and 3 shelves that would all equal a depth of 15 3/4 inches. I began by cutting out parts A and B from a sheet of 3/4 inch plywood. I first cut them at the 15 3/4 inch depth, and then I went back and I cut them to the correct widths that I needed. I then focused on part A, which were my 3 vertical pieces. These 3 pieces were going to need a toe kick cut out of the corner. I used a square and my pencil to mark out which parts I wanted to cut out. Then I clamped the boards to the table and used a jigsaw to cut them out. You'll want to make sure that your toe kick is tall enough that when you have your cabinet doors open, they'll clear the baseboards that are on your wall. With those pieces cut, I moved my attention to the 5 pieces that would act as part B for my cabinet. I took 2 of those pieces, which would act as the bottom shelves of my cabinet, and I marked with a pencil where I wanted to put pocket holes. These pocket holes would be hidden beneath the cabinet so that nobody would be able to see them and can be done with a simple pocket hole jig, or like me, you can use this Foreman, which I think is very useful for big projects like this. Now it's time for the assembly. First, I took one of those bottom shelves, making sure the pocket holes were faced at the bottom, and I lined it up flush with the toe kick. I used my tape measure to make sure it would be equal on both sides. Then, using these picture frame clamps, I clamped them down and I began drilling my pocket hole screws into the boards. I then followed the same process by adding the center vertical piece, then attaching the next bottom shelf, and then lastly, the outside 3rd vertical piece. Next, I turned my focus to the letter C. There are 6 parts that I cut out of plywood that were 3 inches wide and 22 7/8 inches long. Once I had all those pieces cut, I took them over to my pocket hole jig and I cut 2 holes on each side. While attaching these pieces to the base cabinet, I made sure that the pocket holes were facing upward because they wouldn't be shown once there was a top to my cabinet. There should be 2 pieces along the top and then also 1 along the back so that you can screw into the studs of the wall to hold your cabinet in place. I knew I wanted to have adjustable shelving in this cabinet, so I used Craig's shelf pin jig to make that happen. I do have a more in-depth tutorial and video showing that tool and how it is used. If you want to check it out, I'll link it below. For the back side of my cabinet, I cut out a 1/4 inch sheet of plywood, and then I used my nail gun to nail it to the back side of the cabinet. I then used a flush trim bit in my handheld router to flush that to the sides of the cabinet and then gave the whole cabinet a really good sanding. The last part of the cabinet build was to take those leftover B pieces or these shelves and to put edge banding on those. And then that wraps up the base cabinet. Let's move on to the doors. Also, if you're enjoying this content, then make sure you hit that like button to let me know. Okay, so I'm going to build the cabinet doors to my cabinet and I'm going to do a shaker style. This is my first time doing a door, so hopefully everything turns out well. I am using these 1x3 select pine pieces of wood from Home Depot. The first thing I'm going to do is cut out the left and right sides of my cabinet door. I know the cabinet door length is 32 7/8. I am doing frameless cabinets, so I'm going to subtract 1/8 off of that because I want a 1/16 inch reveal around the top and the bottom for adjustments, and also so that it's not hitting the top of my cabinet or the side door or anything like that. All right, so here are my left and right pieces. I'm just gonna do one door for right now and get it up, make sure I understand the hinge and all that before I cut them all. So my cabinet is 47 7/8 inches. I'm gonna subtract 1/4 inch. That'll give me 1/16 inch reveal and playroom with each width of the cabinet. So then I'm going to divide that number by 2 because I have 2 cabinet doors. That gives me the 23 13/16. So that is going to be the total width of my cabinet, so I have to count for the left and right sides. So I'm going to take that number and subtract the width of these. That'll give me my bottom and my top piece. Alright, so here is the frame for my cabinet door. What I'm going to do is keep it really simple, and I'm going to pocket hole 2 holes on each of my top and bottom pieces. And I'm going to make sure I'm avoiding the inside edge because I'm going to be routing out a spot to put the flat panel to set it inside. I do have several tools that I'm using throughout this video, all that I highly recommend. If you want to check those out or check out the other tools in my shop, then you can click the link below. Here I am routing out the inside edges of my frame and then going back with a chisel to round out, not really round out, square out those edges and checking for square. I then measured the inside for the flat panel and I used a 1/4 inch sheet of plywood, cut it down on the table saw to the right length and width. Then before assembling these pieces, I took them over and gave them a good sand. To keep the panels in place, I simply glued around those edges and then made sure to apply weights so that there was equal pressure until the glue dried. Because I'm painting these, I did decide to caulk around all of the seams, making everything nice and clean. Next, it was time to focus on the hinges. This was my first time using Craig's hinge jig, and it actually went really smoothly. Let me give you a quick rundown of what I did. Alright, so I have my settings on the 5, and I lined up just the edge with the top here, and it's actually 4 inches down. It's a bit taller of a cabinet, so I thought that would be best. And then it automatically sets this where it needs to go, and then we have 1/16 inch holes right here, which we're going to take our drill bit and we're going to create a couple little pilot holes for the drill press, and then we will drill the big hole, and we'll do that to both sides. What's great about this jig is that it works with a lot of different types of hinges, and I'll make sure to link this in the description below, as well as the hinges that I used for this particular project. So now that I have all these holes cut, I needed to take the cabinet doors over to the drill press and make sure that I drilled those pilot holes to match these on the hinge so that they would snug right in there. Okay, so I'm getting ready to put the doors on, and I just want to say I really love these hinges. And these are extras that my dad had. They are, I don't even know how to say it. It's Blum or Bloom. It's spelled B-L-U-M. They are soft close, and they're adjustable. So once the door is on, you can screw and unscrew these pieces so that you can change it from going up, down, in, out, or side to side, which is super cool. And another thing that I like about it is, let's see if I can show you. So there's these little tiny lips right here. So once you put it on the door, those will just catch on to the edge of the cabinet, and then you know where to screw, and you can just go ahead and pre-drill your holes and then screw that to the wall or to your cabinet side. So I just really like that. It's really smart. So now I'm gonna put those on. So with the doors attached to the cabinet is finished. All that is really left is edge banding what you want to edge band, as well as putting the handles on the doors if you'd like to do that. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and also to click on that notification bell because part 2 is coming soon, where you will learn how I built the top shelving of my cabinet as well as the arch.